Good morning to you, and welcome back to today's JRPG Weekly Update. I'm SuperDerek, and guys, we've got quite a bit of news to talk about. There was the Nintendo Direct, but there was also a lot of other things that we'll cover as well. Let's go ahead and dive into this first new game that was announced. It's from Hong Kong-based developer Ignicorvus Studios. They've unveiled a new pixel art fantasy RPG called Spark Ignites, and I think it looks pretty dang gorgeous. From the developer, here's a little description. Spark Ignites is a pixel fantasy RPG where the star god's blessing grants one wish each century. Orphan, Ash, and Clover uncover its bloody truth during their pilgrimage, holding a world-changing secret. Will you steal divine power or defy the gods? Every choice writes a new ending, they say. So there's no real release date has been provided, but it does have this really cool looking trailer to help get you excited, at least until we do have more information down the road. Moving on to some other announcements, Phantom Blade Zero, it's an action RPG that's coming from Beijing-based developer S-Party, have released a 22-minute gameplay showcase video. I hadn't heard of the game before this point, at least not to my recollection, but the game does appear to be pretty fast-paced and pretty bloody, an Eastern fantasy title as well. The game is being developed for PlayStation 5 and PC with a release date coming sometime this year, they say. Armed Fantasia also released an updated sort of demo gameplay of their battle system running in their actual development hardware. It's a short, like 18-second clip though. I've already probably played it a few times by now, but I think it looks really nice and the music is phenomenal. You should definitely make sure you check it out. Unfortunately, in the same breath though, we have a pretty heartbreaking update regarding Penny Blood, and rather than trying to spice up the take or try to interpret it or anything, I'm just going to read to you some of the highlights from that update from that team.
Recently, we received an inquiry asking, why are you writing a novel instead of the main game? We understand your concerns and would like to take this opportunity to explain the reason once again. As you may already know, unfortunately, Penny Blood still does not have a publisher, and production of the main game has not progressed. The funds raised through the double Kickstarter campaign ran out in autumn of 2023, and since then, Studio Wild Rose has been operating on Machida and Kato's own funds. Many of you have continued to support us by purchasing things on BackerKit after the double Kickstarter campaign, but we understand that the funds raised through BackerKit will be distributed once the game is completed, so they have not yet reached us. Therefore, Studio Wild Rose created Inheritor's Story with the aim of enhancing the value of the Penny Blood IP and attracting the attention of as many potential publishers as possible by making it popular worldwide. Additionally, regarding new information, while Inheritor's Story has been well received, we have received many requests to read it in paperback rather than as an ebook. In response to this, we are currently working on releasing a Kindle paperback, an actual paper book version. We will announce the specific release date once it is decided. We will continue to strive step by step until the production of the main Penny Blood game becomes a reality. We kindly ask for your understanding and support.
So yeah, I guess it's not that heartbreaking, but it's tough pill to swallow that, the game isn't already in development because it just looked so good. I wish that these developers, or these publishers rather, would jump on this because I think we all know it's going to be an incredible game. It just needs to be made, and Machida and team are the right people to do it. Moving along to some industry news, Konami have announced a Suikoden 90-minute live broadcast scheduled for August 5th. What could it possibly be? Speculation abounds, but if there's anything good, I'll be here to tell you all about it. But for the time being, I'm personally just going to assume that they're going to announce maybe an orchestra in Japan, maybe a 6-episode anime adaptation, limited edition art book, or something. I'm just going to go into this with my expectations in check, but I really don't want to be hurt again. But part of me, in the back of my mind, really wants to see a collection of PS2 Suikoden games getting a remaster, or perhaps announcing that they'll be publishing a new Eiyuden Chronicle title in collaboration with Rabbit & Bear Studios. That's all speculation though. Do not get your hypes up. Hype responsibly. Do not get your hypes up? Do not get your hopes or your hypes up. hype responsibly. Now, let's talk about that Nintendo Switch 2. It has sold over 6 million units so far in the first 7 weeks of its release. That's a pretty good clip. That full stop. That's a really good rate to be selling stuff at. I wish I could sell 1 million of anything. I'd have no problem being full-time on YouTube at that point. But yeah, Nintendo Switch 2 has been doing really well. And it seems like, given these numbers, most owners have gone with the Mario Kart World Bundle, as it sold just about as many units, topping Nintendo's game sales charts for the year so far. Now, this leads into the announcements from the Nintendo Partner Direct, which I'll try and summarize more quickly, but for some of my initial excitement and hype about the Direct, be sure to check out the full video from Thursday linked up here. But first and foremost, the Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales, have captured my full attention. It appears to have some classic mana-style action RPG combat paired with the HD 2D aesthetic from the Octopath Traveler and other Square Enix acquired games. And it looks like and it looks incredibly fun. I know a few people who own a Switch 2, and their first impressions of the demo are pretty nice. So this is the first game that's actually made me feel like I need a Switch 2, even though it looks like the game could run on an original Switch, if only for the exclusive Switch 2 demo. However, the silver lining is that the game will release on Switch 2, PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X and S, and PC sometime in 2026, so it's not going to stay an exclusive. Just the demo at this time is exclusive. And in the same breath, Square Enix also showcased Octopath Traveler 0, which is a single-player, offline, gacha-free adaptation of the mobile gacha title. It appears to be some kind of prequel featuring a huge cast of playable characters and even a town-building mechanic. So this new trailer has me pretty excited and wondering, what are some of the mobile gacha games that you would like to see given a similar treatment and turned into a single-player experience with no microtransactions? Octopath Traveler 0 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series consoles, and PC on December 4, 2025. But Square Enix wasn't the only developer in the showcase, because Square Enix also unveiled that Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven is currently available for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's currently on sale for about 30% off the list price for $35, and if you bought the game on the Switch 1, you could also upgrade your version for $10. If you're considering getting a copy, I highly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it on PlayStation 5. But not to be outdone by Square Enix, Square Enix also showed off a new story trailer for Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, a visually enhanced remake or remaster, I'm not really sure which, of Final Fantasy Tactics, featuring full voice acting. The game is set to release on the Switch and the Switch 2 and PS4 and 5 and Xbox Series consoles and Steam on September 30th for $50. Now, it wouldn't be a real JRPG showcase without Sega, who brought 3 announcements this time of their own. Ports of Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2 coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. Owners of Kiwami 1 on the Switch will be able to update their version to the Switch 2 version with when both games release on November 13th worldwide. But the bigger announcement had to be Persona 3 Reload, which will be coming to the Switch 2 on October 23rd. The game is a high-quality remake of Persona 3 FES from the PlayStation 2, with all kinds of added features and quality-of-life improvements, not to mention a huge visual uplift. And now Capcom also was present, showing up to announce that they're bringing their most beloved non-Breath of Fire turn-based RPG series to the Switch 2 with Monster Hunter Stories 3. This game will be coming to the Switch 2, PS5, the Xbox Series consoles, and PC sometime in 2026, and the trailer looked lovely. Though no gameplay has been shown yet, so I'm sure it'll be great though. Now, while not present at the US Nintendo Partner Direct, NIS also announced a port to the Nintendo Switch 2, this one being Disgaea 7 Complete, which will be launching on October 10th of this year. And if you thought I was done talking about the games that Square Enix brought to the Nintendo Direct, then think again. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake jump scare time. Team Asano coming with their third big announcement of the day, this time exclusively though for the Japanese Nintendo Direct. They showed off a new trailer with the update that the games will be coming to the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 and PS5 and Xbox Series consoles and PC via Steam on October 30th. Now, let's talk a little bit about some SuperDerek news. I've been pretty busy this week, as you might have noticed. On Tuesday the 29th, in my 12-year anniversary channel update video, I reflected on my 12-year-long adventure so far of making videos on YouTube and detailing my plans to avoid homelessness by throwing myself into YouTube full-time while I look for a new job after having been laid off again. Which leads into the videos I've been pumping out this week, bringing back the JRPG Weekly update last week after a long hiatus, covering the Nintendo Switch Direct on Thursday, and talking about how I'm finally putting my Steam Deck to use after all of this time by ignoring what it was meant to do and using it as an indie console and game streaming console for my PS5 and PC. In the evenings, though, I've been returning to Twitch with a brand new strategy, playing 3 different RPGs on 3 different days, in order to give people the option of which days to come and watch on if they want to avoid spoilers for something in particular, and I think it's been working pretty well so far. Tuesday, I kicked off Metaphor Fantasia, and on Thursday, I kicked off the Throwback Thursday with Dragon Quest VI on Super Famicom. We're playing the fan translation by No Progress. That's, I think, how it's pronounced, but it's like no progress, no O, using the Super Nintendo Junior and a Super UFO Pro 8. And it's just such a gorgeous game. And on Friday, this hasn't happened yet as of recording, but I'm going to be starting my playthrough of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of the hubbub is about, bub. If you missed the start of one of these games, I've got the VODs available for you to watch over on my gameplay channel, which I'll link over here or in the description, and I'll have an end card for it as well. If you follow them, you can watch them and get caught up in time for the next stream next week. Now, I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about my thoughts about the Nintendo Switch 2 in the wake of the Nintendo Switch 2 Partner Direct, because I initially reacted to that very excited, and I still feel very positively about all of the games that I talked about. But I realized after watching some other people's takes that, I think I was approaching this from a bit of an outsider's perspective. And I think that there's some pretty good reason that the reception to this Partner Direct was kind of lukewarm. Nobody really loved it. Nobody who owns a Switch 2, who bought a Switch 2, who were looking at this play out, were really excited by what they found. And I think I know why. So, my first impressions of this was about the games themselves and about people who have the Switch 2. If they couldn't play them already, now they can. That's great. What I failed to capture, though, was that these are people who spent $400 or $500 on a brand new console just recently, along with Mario Kart probably, and they're looking for reasons to justify that purchase. And that's a tough position to be in, because none of the games that I saw showcased there felt like they had to be a Switch 2 exclusive. But a lot of the games were like Octopath Traveler 0, great game. The Adventures of Elliot looks incredible, but they look the same as Octopath Traveler 1. So, I mean, graphics obviously are not everything. But if you were watching the Direct and were looking for something to get you excited about the next generation of Switch games, I think I understand the mixed feelings, not the least of which is probably also heavily contributed to the looming shadow of the fact that there are so many of these third-party games that are gonna be on a game key card exclusively or digital only. Like, they're not really getting physical releases, and that feels really, really bad. Nintendo really needs to get their act together on this whole thing, because the fact of the matter is there's a lot of competing factors for third-party developers, And Nintendo's options that they're providing them at this time are clearly funneling them to this really anti-consumer practice or option. The thing is, you can either get super cheap game key cards for your publications, they act like a download code, and for maybe some shiesty companies, the added bonus is whenever the servers shut down, people have to buy your game all over again. And isn't that just a dang shame? The other issue with the game key cards is that because they're the cheap option, there's legitimate reasons that you really wouldn't want to spend the big bucks on producing the version that requires a 64 gig chip. There's no in between. So that means that for an indie to publish a title on the Switch 2, they've got to spend the same amount that they would as if they were just publishing like a AAA game that actually uses all 64 gigs. There's no 4 gig or 8 gig or 16 gig memory card option for them. It's either you pay a few pennies for this thing or you pay dollars for this thing. And at scale, that's a really expensive choice to make, and that's the looming shadow over this entire event, is that for all of these games that are coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2, none of them are gonna be physical on a card. So in 20 years, if you have one of these things that you bought, you plug it into a system, chances are very good that it's not going to work, because Nintendo historically does not leave their servers on the same way that maybe Steam does. And that is, it feels like there should be some sort of movement going on to stop these people from killing the access to these games. Some sort of stop killing games thing. If only there was a guy doing something about that out there and campaigning. Oh wait, there is. You should check him out. I'll link to his whole thing up above. We're all pretty well familiar with him at this point. Honestly, he's gone kind of viral lately, but still, check it out. Support him however you can. Let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit further to community news, because earlier this month, Sword World fan translation for the PC 98 and Super Famicom versions of the game have just been publicly released in beta. I mean, it happened earlier this month, but I just saw it and I wanted to help spread the word about it. These titles are intended to be sort of a tabletop style of computer RPG inspired by the Record of Lodos Wars, featuring rules, classes, and mechanics lifted wholesale from that IP. I'll post a link to the original post of Swords World's subreddit post where you can learn more about it. And huge thank you to Alquid and Bent for their work in bringing these titles to the English-speaking masses. It's time for your JRPG Weekly Forecast, and everything seems pretty quiet right now for the next week. No major releases on my radar to speak of, indies, AAA, or otherwise, but we'll catch up in the next one in the next episode. So, until then, thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great week, everybody.